I think I might have a unique perspective because I am a history major, which means like I read a lot about other time periods. And I think something that happens when you do start to get into history and become a history buff is that not everything seems as sensational to you as it might seem to the general world. So I think there definitely was, at least in the past 10 years, this year was something where the protests, the size of them, the impact, the actual actions that corporations, institutions are taking, it is pretty much unprecedented for this like time period, this like little chunk of history. But overall, I think it is just a larger narrative that's being told, right? Because I think whether it be slavery and abolition, Jim Crow to the civil rights movement, all of these things, they all had huge waves of protest, huge waves of unrest and action mobilization. I'd say this movement I do fear will die out a little bit faster than those old ones, especially because I think the ability to mobilize and to come together is a lot easier than it was before. So civil rights movement, if you wanted to assemble 1 million people in Washington, D.C., you had to work and you had to talk, you had to drive, you had to write letters. But like here, it's like a very Twitter digitalized world. So I only hope that the size and the mass and the publicity surrounding these won't die out and that they're actually a precursor to like really substantial change and revolution in America. By the government, by police, by like institutions and corporations, like all of those have different answers. And I'd say like largely, I do feel pretty disenfranchised, especially being a Black person. I don't think that the concerns around Black people are ever #1 priority in any sort of like time or location or environment, like not even for a little bit. I think that's a huge problem. But I also say like there is positive because I do feel like I have communities like this one, like speaking to you, like the Boys and Girls Clubs, like APA, like all of these other really impactful organizations and individuals that definitely make me feel like I'm supported because I wouldn't be here without them. I do a lot of service. So like beyond student body president, that's just like a service role. I don't get paid for it, but like it's a service role for Yale. I was teaching Boys and Girls Clubs actually. So they had something called Clubhouse at Your House. And I taught a lessons plan called like Be the Change, where I like every other week or so like had an hour-long session with the kids, talked about social justice stuff because that's what's like important to me. So like the Electoral College, Ahmaud Arbery. We started meeting before George Floyd. So we started off with Ahmaud Arbery. Then we talked about George Floyd. Then I gave them a lesson about like the criminal justice system and like just really try to like expand their consciousness and just talk about how like history is so expansive. Like the way that things are right now is not necessarily the way they should be because there's some places where there is no jails, there are no police, and like the way you solve an issue after you do someone wrong is that you do restorative justice, which means like you meet with the person, you talk them through, and a lot of cultures have that, just not U.S. because it's a European based culture. But of course, just expanding their mindsets on that, that was really big. I think just in as much as people are just like talking about stuff that they feel uncomfortable talking about, I think that is a service in itself, especially like when you're advocating. Like the whole point of advocacy is that you're kind of in danger when you do it, and like not necessarily physical danger, but like if I'm working at a corporation and I say, I think most of you guys are doing racist actions, and I think there's a culture of racism here, everyone's going to they're going to side eye you, they're going to look like you're crazy, they might try to like do these background talks and try to get you fired. Like that's a risk, but like when you do speak out, like you're taking a risk, and I think that is a service to people and to the world. I think the biggest concern is just like access to jobs. And I think like it's a very scary thing to come out of college. I think people like probably wouldn't even delay college, the end of it, so they can like stay there longer. But I think both college students, but also I think you have to really look at like people who are in the workforce now, like they're gonna lose their jobs. A lot of them don't have college degrees. And when you don't have a college degree in America nowadays, like people will count you out like a hot second. So I don't know. I'm kind of, I don't want to rank it or anything, but like, I think I'm definitely worried about people in the workforce with families, #1, who are going to lose their jobs. And then college students, like a lot of them can return to their families. A lot of them that can't very much like feel for them, like very, like that's very terrible. Just once again, why I do advocacy a lot. But then I think at like an Ivy League institution, I personally don't have a lot of fears around that. Because once again, like I am very privileged and that's why I try to give back as much as I can. listen to young people, not only in terms of when we say something, you listen to it, but then also giving us more chances to say something, making it more clear, using Twitter, using meeting us where we are. I think that's probably like going to be something that's timeless in terms of helping out, and always getting the advice and perspective of people in that age group who are my peers, even when I'm old later on.